I can't believe I'm saying this, so I might whisper it here, but I might be coming around to the 12-team playoff. Man, it takes a big man to admit these things, but I was I was leading the anti-expansion. I hated it. I did not want it to happen for a lot of it for two main reasons, really. One, the biggest reason is I thought it was going to cheapen the regular season. I thought the biggest games that were playoff games in the regular season in week 7 and week 8 and the week 12, whatever, they were already playoff games. I thought a lot of the luster and the emphasis would be lost on that. And I have to say, I went to the Alabama Tennessee game, and man, there was maximum emphasis on that game. And you can tell it in the crowd, you can tell it with the electricity in that stadium. And obviously, in the four-team format, that loss that Alabama suffered, which knocked them down to two losses, would have really kept them out of a four-team playoff, and their season would have been rendered obsolete for the rest of the year. But it didn't really cheapen it all that much. I did not feel cheated in that environment. I thought that the place was awesome and electric, and even though Bama still has a shot, I didn't really feel that it was we lost a lot of emphasis on that game. Now, obviously, Bama's chances are still alive, and that wouldn't have happened in a 14 playoff. But I think I overestimated the impact that the 12-team playoff would have on these regular season games, and it really didn't yield out to that. Now, the second piece, and a really big one, an important one as well, is that when we looked at the history of the 14 playoff, there were several years where we were really stretching to get a fourth team in. And a lot of those times, those teams were just like, that's the best option we got. But we know that fourth team isn't really going to compete. And we know that this is really a three-team race. And now, obviously, there were years where that didn't happen, but I think there was a lot of years where we did see that happen. So my thought was, if we're already struggling to get four teams in, four teams that we legit think could win the national championship, and we're struggling to do that already, what are we going to do with this 12-team field? Like, there's just going to be a lot of blowouts and a lot of non-competitive games, and we're going to end up with the same result, and Georgia's going to win the national championship, or Alabama's going to win the national championship, whatever. Now, that all may still happen, but the road to get there is a little bit different. And I don't think that we can view the sport of college football through the lens that we have looked at it over the past 10 years and in the 14 playoff era, where there were a lot of super teams. You look at Alabama's, you look at Ohio State's that have had super teams. LSU has had super teams. Clemson has had super teams. There doesn't seem to be that there's a super team right now in this era of the sport. You can look at Oregon right now, but even they still have some blemishes, but they're probably the closest thing we've seen so far in this year to a super team. But the rest of the sport has really condensed each other, and the extremes are not as much of an extreme as before, meaning the great teams are not separating the way that they used to, and the really, really bad teams are not as bad as they've once been. The sport has been condensed. It's flattening a little bit. So now when we look at a 12-team playoff field in a previous model, in a previous era, let's say 2021, having 12 teams would have seemed asinine, because we know at the end of the day, the 12th ranked team or the 10th ranked team really wasn't going to be what you thought it was going to be. But now I think that those teams can actually compete, and that's what we're seeing this year. We're seeing a lot of parity in the sport. So with that being the case, I'm coming around a little bit to having this 12-team playoff. Obviously, the games on campus are going to be electric. A playoff game on campus is going to be awesome. Never disputed that. I never disputed that the 12-team playoff, when it happens, is going to be awesome and fun. Always thought that was going to be the case. I had concerns about jeopardizing and cheapening the regular season. And then also what are we really doing here? Because we're going to end up at the same result, and Georgia's going to win the national championship. But like I said, that still could very well happen, but I think the road to get there is very different, and it needs to be looked at through a different lens. So I am now open to the 12-team playoff. I don't want it to go beyond 12. I think we're good at 12 here. I don't think we need to continue to expand this year, but I am more open to it. And as an anti-expansionist, it kind of stings, but also in a good way. Like, I hoped I would have been wrong, and I was wrong. So looking forward to the college football playoff this year. Follow Big Body Ball CFB on all socials.